So before I relate the tale, a little bit of background. It seems to date to around about the end of the 2nd, beginning of the 3rd century, and was probably quite a well-known and popular story at the time in the early church. It was translated from English from a Syrian document in 2010 by a professor from the Harvard School of Divinity by the name of Brett Landau. And the Syrian document had in turn been copied down by some anonymous monk in the Zuknin monastery, which is in southeastern Turkey, at the end of the 8th century. And then at some point it had changed hands and ended up in another monastery in the depths of the deserts of Egypt. And it had stayed there until the 18th century, when the Vatican had sent an envoy from Rome and said, bring that back and put it into the Vatican library. And it had stayed there ever since. So it's told in the first person, as if the Magi are revealing the story themselves. And it tells of the Magi being men from the imaginary land of Shir, S-H-I-R, which seems likely to maybe have been somewhere like China. So in this story, they describe how their families have been given this enormous task to do for generations, and that is to watch for a star and to pray within a cave housed within the mountain of treasures. So these men were kings from a long lineage of kings, but this is not why they were called Magi. We are told that they have that name precisely because they praise and praise God and pray to God in silence. And this is a devotion that they do on their knees with their hands upraised. And they tell that this is the exact meaning of the word Magi. And they tell of a story that they have for generations has been passed from father to son, and that they in turn will pass it to their sons, that they have like this obligation to look for a star so bright, and it will come to land upon a pillar of light, and then it will they will find it in the cave of treasures. So this is not just any light, but one that would be so bright that it would obscure the sun, moon and stars, so that none of them could be seen in its presence. And within this light, a frail human would be seen with the sign of the cross upon him. And if they were ever to witness this light, then they should go and find this person and take the treasures from the cave of treasures that had been readily prepared for him. So each month they ascended the mountain to praise God and to pray over the treasures. And on the 25th day of each month they would gather at the foot of the hill and bathe in the spring of purification, surrounded by 7 trees: an olive, vine, myrtle, cypress, orange, cedar and juniper. And there were glory in the fragrances of the place. And then on the 1st of the month they climbed up the mountain and stood before the cave of treasures. And for 2 days they prayed silently. And then on the 3rd day they read the revelation that revealed how Adam would often see this star when it appeared in Eden. But his ability to see it was taken away from him when he was cast out of the garden. Grief-stricken about this loss, the revelation tells how Adam had warned Seth how important it was that he walked in righteousness, in the hope that God would be merciful. So together they looked upon the treasures that Adam had laid within the cave and prayed over them. And then they descended the mountain joyfully to remind everyone of their prophecy, lest one of them might pass away and that their sons needed to be raised up. Well, of course, one day it does come to pass that the Magi eventually witnesses Adam's star. It happens at dawn, as they're being purified in the spring. An ineffable pillar of light, brilliant beyond all comprehension, comes to rest above the water. And the sun tried to rise, but it was just absorbed into the pillar of light. However, none but the Magi could see it. So in awe and wonder they climbed up to the cave of treasures, and lo and behold, there's the pillar of light in front of the cave. And the gates of heaven open, and the Magi see the great powers of heaven carrying a man down to them. And they're told, enter the cave unafraid. And there the light condenses into a small, humble man who greets them. Peace to you, sons of my hidden mysteries. Well, I'll let you read the rest of the story. It's not mine to tell. But what I found fascinating and really frustrating is the word myrrh never appears anywhere in the book. But of course we do know what the treasures were that go to the nativity. They do find their way to the stable. But the Bible never really discloses what happened to those wealth. So over the centuries there's been lots of theories proposed. Some say that it financed Mary and Joseph for their flight away from Herod. That makes sense. Others say it was entrusted to Judas, who subsequently misappropriated it. I'm not sure I like that one. There's another story that says a thief stole it and was crucified next to Jesus. I like to imagine that it was the same myrrh at Jesus's birth that was used to embalm him at the crucifixion, and that Mary kept it safe for all these years. Well, if you ask the monks at the monastery of St. Paul on the side of Mount Athos, they would say they disagree with all of these theories, because they purport to be the guardians of a gold box of 38 gold coins of varying shapes and decorations, and 62 olive-shaped beads of incense, said to be those precious nativity gifts. And the case was gifted to them in the 15th century by a daughter of the King of Serbia. And this is how they relate the providence. They say that near the end of her life, Mother Mary had gone to the Church of Jerusalem to entrust these gifts and Jesus's burial shroud to their safekeeping, and they had stayed there until the Emperor Arcadius had taken them to Constantinople in the 4th century to protect and promote his city for the appreciation of the faithful. And they had remained in Constantinople for 800 years until the city was sacked by the Crusaders in 1204. And then the church and the holy relics had been relocated to Nicaea, which was the temporary capital of Byzantium. But then the gifts were returned to Constantinople, but then the Constantinople had been like this big bastion of Christian faith, but then it fell. No,